You're listening to Straight Shooters, a straightforward golf podcast that'll straighten out your game. And here are your hosts, Keith Bennett and Henry Stetina.
All right. Welcome back to the Straight Shooters podcast. We've got a special guest here today, Mr. Brett Walker. I went to school with Brett. He was in my PGM cohort. We played on the golf team together for a couple of years. And Henry was down there at the University, New Mexico State University for, I think, Brett's last year. But yeah, Brett's got some exciting news. He just qualified for his first PGA Tour event, which happens to be the PGA Championship. Played really well at the PGA Professional Championship, and we're happy to have him on the podcast this morning. Brett, welcome. And yeah, if you wouldn't mind just giving the listeners maybe like a quick 2-minute background kind of on yourself, where you grew up, how you got into golf, how you got into the PGA program, and then how you're sitting right now in Kiowa getting ready for a major championship.
Yeah, appreciate it, Keith. Thanks for having me on. And Henry, thank you. Appreciate it. Just a quick intro. I grew up in Ukiah, California, and I started playing when I was probably 12 or 13. Played a lot of other sports growing up. Just kind of liked it because it was a sport that was completely different than the other ones that I had done. So I kind of pursued it a little bit more in high school. And then my mom helped me find the PGA Golf Management program that was being offered at various universities. Chose New Mexico State for various reasons. And like Keith alluded to, I did play on the golf team as well there and do the PGM and continue to just try to hone my craft and try to improve. I really just tried to improve as much as I could every year in and year out, all the way since I started back, I think it's about 17 years ago. So, yeah, I think just where I'm at today is just a byproduct of constant improvement. I mean, I sucked growing up, honestly, to tell you the truth. I wasn't very good, but I just, I loved it and I wanted to get better and I kept learning. And yeah, that's kind of a quick little intro. I guess, yeah.
And so did you play junior golf? Did you play high school golf? Did you play any junior golf growing up?
I did. Yeah. I played at the JGANC. It's a Junior Golf Association of Northern California. I played a few of those events. I didn't play in any AJGA events just because they're a little bit too expensive for myself and my family. And frankly, I wasn't really shooting that good, honestly, to even get looked at by any colleges. Like I really wanted to play, collegiately, but I played in high school as well. And, I played on the varsity for 4 years. I had some good rounds and whatnot, but it, as far as how it stacked up to, college level, it was more of like a maybe D2, maybe D3 NAI. It wasn't even close to D1 at all. So to what I did play in, I did play in some junior golf tournaments and in high school. Yes.
Sorry, go ahead, Henry.
I came on at the very end as an employee there at NMSU, right as you were finishing up. And so I really don't know your kind of backstory. And did you come to the university for the PGM program and then walked onto the team, or did you come on a scholarship? I don't really know how that took place.
Yeah, I originally came, honestly, for the PGA Golf Management program. I wanted somewhere to still compete as a player and then also to, get a degree. So that got both of those checked off. I really wanted to play college level. I just, looking past college, getting a PGA degree got me some type of job, something in the job market that I could do post-college. And so that's kind of the reason why I went there, is to do the PGA Golf Management program. And I knew Pat and Josh had put together a really good tournament program so I could still compete, which is kind of what I really wanted to do. And then my second year, Scott Lieberworth, the old coach, left. I think he went to UTEP or he went somewhere else. And a new coach, Mike Dirks, came in, and I think there was like 4 or 5 players that left. Either I don't know what happened, but there was only like 7 or 8 guys on the team, and Dirks was looking to just fill the roster. So I just kind of was there in the PGM program my second year in school, and they were asking for people to try out. And I was like, all right. So me and like 3 other guys went and tried out, and he looked at us, and I think he watched me hit like a few shots and watched me play 3 or 4 holes. And he's like, "Hey, how quick can you get a physical?" I remember walking up the 4th hole at New Mexico State golf course, and he was like, "How quick can you get a physical?" And I was like, "I don't know, probably next week or a couple of days or something." And he was like, "Yeah, the quicker you get it, the quicker you can go to UNM's tournament next week." And I was like, "Wow, that was quick."
We're playing D1 golf, baby.
Yeah, so it happened really quickly as far as from start to finish. It just was really quick. But I kind of, they say you kind of are at the right place at the right time. I kind of, there's this great quote from Harv Eker in The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind that says you have to be the right person in the right place at the right time. And I think I was that right person at the right place at the right time, because there were a few other people trying out that didn't make it. They may have made it later the next year, but for me, I was ready to go. And obviously I learned a ton that first year and kind of struggled a little bit in that D1 level, but it got me to where I could be around players that were much better than me. That was huge for me. And so I think I was just in the right place, the right time, and the right person. And Dirk saw some potential in me, and he really helped me grow as a player for 4 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you turned out, I believe, to be the number 1 player on the team there at the end, right?
I did hold that spot for a little bit. Most of the time, how it was ranked is basically how you played in the previous tournament. So if you played well in the previous tournament, then you were ranked, I guess, number 1, or if you won qualifying for the tournament. So a few times I'd done that because I'd won, the Herb Wemberley a couple of times and finished high as a team in a few tournaments. And so to answer your point, yes, I was at that top, a handful of times during the year.
So what was it that really catapulted you to that point? I mean, you said you weren't that good in junior golf. You weren't really being recruited. And then you just went to NMSU for the PGA Golf Management Program. Right spot, right time, right guy. And, catapulted to where you were the number 1 player on the team towards the end, winning collegiate tournaments, and now in the PGA Championship. I mean, that's quite the ascent to a really high level of play. What seemed to have been some of those things that you did along the way that really helped your career?
Like I said at the beginning of the intro, was a lot of it was just a constant improvement. I mean, I did say I wasn't very good growing up. It's just because I'd never played really. So it wasn't the fact that I had no skill. It was the fact that I was doing something that I had never done before. So for example, if you pick up a guitar and you've never played before, you're not going to be very good. So I guess maybe that was not the right way to say it, as far as I just had never done it before. So I didn't really know my potential, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you had raw talent, hadn't been developed yet, hadn't been honed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I was very athletic, and I played a lot of sports, and sports came, I don't know if it came easy to me. It just, I just could put in the long hours because I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed playing and competing and being out there. So putting in the long hours was never a issue for me. It was more fun to me. So I enjoyed just being out there. And I would say the process of me becoming from where I started to where I am now, like I said, constant improvement mostly is all once I started getting some specific good teaching, honestly, helped me a ton. And I think, during COVID, I actually read you can see all these books back here, and I got another 40 or 50 books that I probably went through 20 or 30 during COVID and read a ton. I'm actually building a training program, mental training program that I kind of went through myself, and I wanted to create that. And I started getting around some of the top teachers in the country and learning from them in person this past year. And I think that really helped as far as getting around the highest level teachers in book format and in person. And so I would say those few things for sure. There was one other thing I was going to say.
Man, that we could have you on we're going to have you back for another podcast. I got to hear about this mental training program. This sounds incredible. No,
No kidding.
that's really cool, man. I didn't realize that you were doing all that stuff. We hadn't talked in a little while. That's awesome to hear about. Um, yeah, we'll have to dive into that a little bit more at a different time. But where did this love for the process come from? Was it something that was instilled in you by a coach at a young age? Was it instilled in you as by your parents? Where did this kind of love for practice and the grind and just like getting 0.5% better every day? Because a lot of people are out there just, wanting the end result, right? They want the team, they want the spot on the team, they want the number one spot on their college team, but maybe not willing to put in those little baby steps to get there. And, I remember you and I would be out there practicing a ton, and I was just as, willing to put in the work, but you and I would always be out there grinding all the time. And you were a pretty big inspiration for me coming into the school system because you had done exactly what I wanted to do, which is walk on the team. And, but where did you get that process mindset from?
I learned it, honestly, to tell you the truth. A lot of this stuff that the greatest success that I've had, at least the quickest success, is literally from learning, and not just like level, like mediocre, like the top level learning, like the best teachers and whatnot. So the love of the process, I went to Texas about a month ago, and I gave a speech to the University of Victoria golf teams and some other coaches and administrators. There's probably 30, 40 people there. And I talked for like an hour about my improvement and the process and different stuff like that. And to answer your point, I didn't understand that when people talked about I love the process, this is great, this is that. I didn't understand it. And I thought it was like some like hokey thing, like you just don't like to hold the trophy or something. Like,
right.
Like, you got to be crazy,
right?
And when I started, like I said, diving in during COVID, and I started understanding what that meant, it all made sense. And so I would say that, growing up, my dad and my mom were very inspirational to me. Their actions spoke a lot louder than words to me. My dad showed me the process and the way he worked. Like he worked for the telephone company, and he got up, every day and worked. And even on his days off, he would go in. If there was like a broken pole or something, he would go in. So I saw that persistent effort, consistent, diligent effort. And he didn't even have to say it. I just saw it growing up, and same with my mom. So as far as the process, I saw it. I just didn't really understand it quite until, like I said, I started understanding and trying to learn this stuff. And when I started realizing that the bulk of your process, or the bulk of your life, for example, is the journey, then if you don't understand that, then you're not going to love the journey. It's like John Calipari says, you got to love the grind, because life is the grind. And if you don't love your life, you don't love the grind, or you don't love the grind, you don't love your life. So, it's just like in a golf tournament, the end trophy, like, for me making it to the PGA Championship, that lasted maybe, I don't know, an hour or whatnot for people, talking to me, doing this, doing that, or when I won that stroke play, it didn't last that long. But all the time that I prepared, and even the long duration of the tournament, the 4 days, that was the bulk of the process. And it even started, years before that. So when I started realizing, wow, I have to actually like the day in, day out more than the trophy, even though I do like that. And it's like, Tony Robbins said, you should, party when you succeed, and when you fail, I think he says, ponder. When you're growing, you're in pain. And so I started realizing that I had to really get my day-to-day, my 5-minute plan, my hourly plan much better. And my day-to-day needed to be better. And I started loving just each day, and not just trying to win the golf tournament or something. Same thing for a golf shot. I just started, I'm going to do one golf shot. Like Jack Nicklaus said, I'm going to make this shot the best of my life. That's the only shot that I have right now. And I did that for every shot. I do that for every shot, like from now on. And I started realizing that the day to day was more important. And I started figuring out, and I started thinking differently and being like, okay, so that's how I started. I mean, and I'm still learning and building and trying to get better at that day-to-day process. And so to answer your question of that, I would say from my parents, I saw that, from my coaches. And I know one thing I didn't mention of how I catapulted, I guess, from my improvement was I started to believe in myself a little bit more. And Dirk's helped me with that a ton at New Mexico State. Mike Adams has really helped me a lot. I've been working with him a lot, and he's helped me believe. And, Rattel has been helping a ton, and a lot of people have been helping me believe in myself. And that's what it really started with Dirk's, honestly. If I was going to tell you I think it was my sophomore year. I hadn't had a really good finish, but I was playing as an individual in the Herb Wemberley my second year. And it was the final round. And I can still remember walking out of the locker room, and Dirks was like, "Hey, go have a good round." And I was like, I think I was even par or one over at the time. And he probably wishes I was playing for the team score, but I wasn't. I was playing as an individual. And it's funny because some coaches would like berate that player, be like, "Why aren't you playing good for the team? Like, now you're playing as an individual. Now you're playing good." And it's like, but he didn't do that. All he said was, "Hey, Brett, go have a good round." And I did have a good round. And I shot 2 under, and I got 12th in that event. And like, that was one of the times that was the hugest start to believing in myself. And he believed first in myself. And I think that's huge to have some support and people around you that help you do that. So
no doubt. Holy cow, man. You got me ready to like run through a brick wall over here. For starters, I need your entire book list. We need to start we need to share that book list with everybody. But wow. I mean, I think the coolest thing I got from that was just that you watched your parents, right? That you learned from examples, that they didn't have to tell you, "Hey, Brett, you need to get up and do the right thing every day, or you need to go the extra mile." You just observed it, and then, through osmosis, learned it later on. And I think that happens a lot where we don't really maybe realize it in the moment, but then we connect the dots years later, and we go, "Oh yeah, that's what my dad was doing, and that's why I am this way, and that's how I got that character trait."
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. And I think that can be something that we take as coaches too. It's just like, hey, we don't always have to say and tell our students what to do. Sometimes it's just them observing us doing it, or them, seeing that we love the process and the practice and the growth mindset as much as we say it. Because sometimes when you hear someone kind of pound it in your head, you're like, yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, process. But, when you actually see somebody do it, that's really cool. But so fast forward a little bit, you're in the PGA Professional Championship. So obviously you qualify locally. And now you're in the PGA Professional Championship. For those who maybe don't know, who are listening, the PGA Professional Championship is a chance for, it's basically the biggest, it's kind of our Super Bowl as PGA professionals. And, the next step is to finish top 20 in that event, and you get into a major championship, the actual PGA Championship, where you're competing against Rory, Adam Scott, Dustin Johnson, all the biggest names in golf. So you're in the PGA Professional Championship. It's down in Port St. Lucie, right?
Yes.
It was down in Port St. Lucie. So you show up, and you've got this process mindset. So what does your preparation look like for that event? What is, you just said you have a shot for shot, mindset, but it's a 4-day event. I mean, that's a haul, that's a grind, right? I mean, that's a lot of shots and a lot of staying in the moments. So do you have like a way to stay in the moment, a mantra you come back to, a trigger? And then also like, how do you go about getting ready for an event like that?
Yeah, great questions. Fortunately for me, and I feel like a lot of golf professionals, it was cool to be at Port St. Lucie because it was a familiar venue for me.
Yeah.
Because I had played I mean, gosh, I had played Jones Cup back there for the PGM back in 2011. I think that's the first time I set foot on property.
Yeah.
And I remember in 2015, our team won the thing, and I think I tied with Nate LeBlanc as the low medalist. And then all the Winter Series events for the PGA are all at Port St. Lucie. The 6 2-day Winter Series events, the stroke play thing, the team championships, the Stableford, the junior, senior, are all there. And I played in them. I think this is my 3rd year playing and all that stuff. So as far as like one of your questions was, how do I prepare for it? It was great because I had a ton of experience preparing previously for that.
Right. You had a bunch of practice
playing in different events, which was huge. So as far as my preparation, it was real quick. I just went out and played. I think I played three practice rounds before that, just to, get more taper my practice to more taper playing. When you get ready for an event, you should taper for playing, not practice. And even though you're practicing, you should play more, but when you're getting ready for an event. So I knew that. And so I was playing a ton, getting ready for that event. And honestly, I'd seen the courses in so many different wind conditions, so many different hole locations, that I knew I wasn't going to see something that different. I just had to relive those experiences, honestly, because I had just won the 2021 stroke play event 2 months earlier in February at the Ryder courses and the Wanamaker, which is what we're playing today, or what we're playing for the professional national championship. So
right. So you had good vibes. You had good memories.
I had great. Yeah. I knew if I just stuck to my game plan, stuck to what I had already done in the past, that I had a great chance at playing well. And, that was one of the biggest factors of that. It was almost felt like I was playing at home, because I actually played Canadian Q School there in 2012 or 2016. I played Q School there, and that was a completely different golf course setup than the Winter Series. So I'd seen it in a lot of different ways how it was set up. So I wasn't concerned with how I was going to go about that, but that was a huge help for me. And I took that and harnessed that as far as almost like me playing at home. And I was like, I love playing at home. And so, like you said, the 4 days, yes, it's a long time for sure. I treated it as just one round of golf per day and then one shot. And honestly, I do my normal routine, getting up and whatnot, and warming up, trying to get my body loose. And then it's just going to the first tee, and I literally would just try to execute the shot that I had at hand. And I would say that's literally the biggest challenge in tournament golf, in life, and anything, is if you obviously have a long-term goal. Like, obviously my goal was to win the tournament. My goal wasn't to place in the top 20. I was trying to win the thing. Mm-hmm. And I knew I could win the thing because I had just beat Omar Uresti in a playoff for the stroke play, and he's the guy that won the thing. So I mean, I knew I could do something.
Whip up on that guy.
Yeah, I knew I could play well. I knew I could play well there because I had done it in the past, and that was huge for me. And I know I was working with a sports psychologist, John Murray, and he said that past results is one of the biggest ways you get confidence. And so I remembered that I had played well at this same venue multiple different times. I actually had won a couple times. And I was like, wow, I can do this. And so I just, I really tried to adapt to the situations as best I could. And then I had a friendly face on the bag, Rich Fortuno from Conway Farms, that I met a few years back. So that brought back some good feelings. And he was on the bag when I was at the previous national championship, or the professional championship, a couple years ago. So I tried to create a lot of good feelings and good memories to remind myself that I have played well and I could do it. And then just tried to execute, each shot. And, some of the teachers that I was working with helped me with certain shots that I could hit, and really gave me confidence, because I knew where the ball was going to go most of the time before I even hit the shot. And it was just kind of, just getting out there and going. You have a little, obviously your nerves and you got some butterflies before the event and before each shot, but like once you start walking and you start going toward it, those kind of subside a little bit. And even if you do have those are good. Those are like old friends. You want those. You want the butterflies. You want them because that means you're doing something that you deeply care about. And so I knew I was in the right place, the right time. And I thought, if I stayed in the present and if I controlled my thinking to only the one shot, it just was, if I was on the 15th hole and I had 110 yards or whatever, that's the only thing that mattered. I didn't care if I was 3 over or if I was 3 under. I mean, I had multiple variations that way or this way during the tournament. And I had a low level of significance on each shot placed. So regardless of if it was the first shot or my last shot, I was trying to keep it the same low level of significance, not overreacting, not underreacting, kind of just this very same. People make fun of Dustin Johnson, but I think he's got one of the best low level of significance to each shot. Like he just hits it and he's just like, oh, that's pretty good. Oh, he hits it. And he makes a putt and he's like, yeah. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
I think I could, I don't want to speak for Keith, but I think I can on this because I think we're both kind of on the edge of our seats listening to you because we have
you got 3 more hours or how long?
Yeah. You're saying all the things that we kind of talk about to each other on a daily basis. We meet usually in the mornings on his route to work. And so if you're available for a 3-way call, maybe we could add you in and we could chat more often because what you're saying is totally along the lines that we're really interested in and fascinated by, because, you're saying all the right things, the process, this was learned. This is it's a growth mindset. You're doing things day by day and one shot at a time. And, all of those things that we hear tour players talk about and can be almost cliche to where, like you said earlier, like it can't be that way, right? You're just saying those things, but in reality, that is truly the magic that allows a person to perform at his best. And you're living it. You're actually doing it. And you're saying it in such a way that I can totally tell that you're in that mindset and you're doing it.
Yeah, it's you're very right. And like I remember watching you both on Instagram and this and that, and I'm not too out there on social media. I kind of like am behind the scenes a lot, kind of like going to town on my reading and going to town on just getting my work done. And then, then bang, I'm in the PGA Championship kind of thing. And it's so true. And, I remember one of the questions I think Keith asked earlier was something like, how'd you be successful or something like that. And I really had a deep desire to like be really good at something. Whatever I wanted to do, whatever I end up doing, I wanted to be really good at it. And so I dove into like how people become successful too. And I started realizing exactly what Henry just said, that stuff. And Keith said, I was like, wow. And then I started realizing that so I just honestly started to try it. I was like, let's just do it. Mm-hmm. And I literally was like, let's just try it. Just for a little bit. I don't know, maybe we'll just do it. And so I dove into it, and it's wild because it actually works. It sounds cliche. It's literally common sense,
right?
But common sense isn't so common anymore. And when I actually was doing this stuff, it actually was working. And I was like, holy smokes. Like I literally, sometimes I have to pinch myself. I almost feel like I'm living someone else's life. I almost feel like I'm in a dream sometimes. I'm like, this doesn't seem real, because I remember 5 or 10 years ago, I'd be watching on TV these tournaments. I'm like, man, that'd be cool to play in that. And I'm like, holy smokes, I am playing in that. And, it's wild, and it really can happen. It really can. And, it's just amazing, really. If you actually do this stuff, it's wild. It's really cool. So
looking back, it's sometimes a little easier to connect the dots as to how you got to where you are. and you can piece together the people who were influential and the times and the moments and the books and the things that you did along the way that got you to where you are. But looking forward is a little bit different story. You have a big tournament coming up, and I totally get what you're talking about, but I'm curious to hear your thought process looking forward and how you're preparing for this type of a process mindset for the PGA Championship, which can be extremely distracting.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I did a little experiment during the professional national championship of being literally like tunnel visioned. And because I had my parents out there, my girlfriend was out there, her family, there were some like cameras and whatnot. And I was like, I just can't even look at them. Like, I literally just like, when I'm on the course, I'm just like literally going to like not even look at them. Because if I look at them, sometimes I'll like get emotional or I'll start thinking about certain things. I'm like, no, I just want to focus on my golf game.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they came here to watch me, is to play golf. So I was like, okay, that's what you got to do. So I did a little experiment there and I really liked that. And so moving forward to the PGA Championship, I'm really excited to tee it up. I think, obviously by the product of me qualifying, I think I have the game to play with these guys. And I've played with tour players in the past. Like I played with Jim Herman at Marion this past summer. And I saw my game, is not that far off some of these players. And I remember in college, I remember playing with Max Homa. I got paired up with him. I got paired up with Xander Schauffele. I got paired up with Gavin Green. We were in the same fields as like the Spieths, the Rogers, the Rahms. And I saw my game was not that far off. It just needed, as Keith was saying earlier, needed to be, I think he said something like refined, or the rawness was there. It just needed to be kind of shaved down to the better parts. And so I saw myself really close to where I wanted to be. And I wanted to be a tour player. And I'm like, man, I can do this. And so to answer your question, Henry, of what did you say? What the question was, looking forward, how I'm preparing for that?
Yeah.
How I'm going to prepare is honestly how I prepared for a lot of other events. I don't have a ton of experience at Kiawah, but on my drive up from Florida to Philadelphia this past week, I spent 2 days there, played 45 holes, and got a caddy that caddied in the 2012 PGA Championship for Robert Carlson to be on my bag for 2.5 rounds. And he was telling me all locations and kind of insider knowledge, really. So I got the scoop on a lot of stuff that he'd been caddying there for 12 or 15 years or something. And has played like 500 rounds there, and he's caddied for a ton too. And so I got a ton of information there. So I'm literally going to take the same stuff that got me there. So the keep learning, the keep process. So I went to Kiawah, learned a little bit, found that caddy. I got some information from him. I'm going to go back down and play, I think, 3 or 4 more practice rounds. And then I'm going to take that same mindset that I had in that stroke play tournament that I won, the professional national championship that I won, and I'm just going to implant it during the PGA Championship. And obviously the holes are a little different, the circumstances are a little different, but if you kind of, significance only happens if what you attach it to. So, if you say that the PGA Championship is a major championship and there's supposed to be a whole bunch of pressure and you're supposed to be nervous, then you will be. And like, I 100% will be a little bit for sure, but I know that I'm only going to let the amount of internal pressure that I want. So the rest of that pressure, I'm just going to not ignore, but just not let it entertain me. And if it does entertain me, I'm going to accept it and then let it go. And then use that type of pressure for executing my shots, for thinking better, and use that same mindset that got me to where I am today and where I'm going to be at the PGA Championship. So it's going to be a different venue, different time. There's going to be stands, cameras, all this, fans and whatnot. But I know if I stick to my game plan, if I stick to what got me there, and I really focus on executing the shots, because if I took that hole and I put it in a different part of the world, back in Las Cruces or back in Florida, I would look at that hole and be like, I've played about 1 million of these type of holes. So,
Right.
you know, if I take it out of that, out of that place, that helps me a little bit as well. And at the end of the day, it's still a golf shot. You know, it's just the circumstances around it have changed a little bit. And so I'm going to take a lot of the experience that I've had and then keep learning. I'm going to try to learn a ton, try to see if I can play some practice rounds with some good players at the event. And try to have some fun with it. And just, you know, I'm just really going to try to have some fun. And I really think I could compete with those guys. I mean, why not? I made it there. So who cares?
Yeah.
What the heck?
Hell yeah. Hey, I want to go back to something real quick. You said, you know, those thoughts and those feelings are going to crop up. It's just up to me if I entertain them or not. I think a lot of people, and that sounds like mindfulness, that sounds a little bit like meditation and stuff like that. So I think for a lot of people, myself included, for a while, I thought I was like the victim of those thoughts. I thought that it was like unique to me, where it's like I have those thoughts of like, if I don't do well, I'll get X, or if I do well, I'll hold the trophy and people think of me Y, right? You know, it sounds like you've had an evolution in mindset where, and I think this is helpful for a lot of people, where those thoughts never go away. It's not like you train your mind to the point where you never have a thought where, wow, if I play well, what will this do for my career? Holy cow, I might be on the PGA Tour if I finish in the top 5, right? You know, like those thoughts never go away. But what you're alluding to is like acknowledging those thoughts, not letting them take you down like a spiral of other thoughts that could add pressure. And therefore you can't really compete at your highest level. Like, is it just through the books you've read or a training process where you've kind of trained yourself to acknowledge that thought and then realize that it's unproductive and kind of get back at the task at hand?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that's a question that a lot of people ask. You know, what you said is like, you know, if you're in that situation, you're like, oh, if I place in the top 5, place in the top 20, and I'll make it to the PGA Championship, whatever. What are you doing right there? You're thinking about something in the future. And if you be like, oh man, I just made a bogey, what are you doing? You're thinking about something in the past. There's a fundamental law or fundamental trait that Harv Eker talks about that says you can only focus on, or what you focus on expands. And so I took that to say, okay, so if I keep focusing on getting top 20, it's going to expand. I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on what my pre-shot routine is. I want to focus on, hey, Rich, how far do we got? How far to the front edge? When I started realizing that of what I started focusing on, your brain's really smart and you can only focus on really one thing at a time. So I started realizing that if I just started kind of honing my mind, training it to focus on the present stuff. Obviously you want to be aware of other situations and stuff, but you'll get that just through your eyes. So you don't really have to think about that too much.
That mental evolution that you've gone through, is that just through books you've read, or is that, are you doing any sort of mind work other than just being more aware of it? Is there like a daily practice that you're doing, or is it just being aware of these truths?
It's definitely a higher awareness level for sure. I've gone through I went through one really good program, the Ty Lopez 6-7 steps. I went through that, which was fantastic. And then that helped on intangible traits. And then, obviously I read a ton of books, but as far as the evolution, what was the question again? The evolution of
just your new mindset of one shot at a time, mindfulness, acknowledging the unproductive thoughts.
Oh yeah. Gotcha. So yeah, to answer your question, I read a couple Navy SEAL books, and they talked about something in there that I thought was fascinating because I didn't think it happened. And you even said it too, where they said in there that people think that Navy SEALs never get fearful, never get scared, never do this, never do that. And he said, those stuffs, they never go away. He's like, you just learn to deal with it, and you learn certain strategies, certain things to help your breathing get better, help your when you are fearful or something, like, if you're getting shot at or something, yeah, you're going to be scared unless you're literally a psychopath.
Right.
Like, you're going to have some emotion, right?
Right.
And you can't have courage if you've never been fearful. So when I read that, I was like, wow. And I came to the same thing you did, Keith, where you're like, wow, why do I keep having these thoughts? I don't want to have these thoughts of like, oh, what if I play bad? What are these people going to think of me? Or what if I hit this shot? What if I, all these, bad thoughts, and they're never going to go away. Yep. But the more you start focusing on what you want to do, I think that's the main point. Is I learned that from Rotella. He said, focus on what you want to do, not what you don't want to do. So when
simple.
Yeah, it's literally that simple. When I started, sometimes I'd look at the water and be like, oh man, I don't want to hit it left into the water. And I'm like, okay, that thought came into my mind. No big deal.
Right. Yeah.
But you know what? What am I going to do now? I know that I have to focus on what I want to do. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hit this little, bullet fade down the fairway and curve it back into the middle of the fairway. And I'm going to execute my routine. Rich, what's that wind looking like? He's like, okay, it's into left, right. Okay, into left, right. Okay, that's what I got to do for this. And I started doing that more and more and more. And then when you get a thought like that, you'd be like, you kind of laugh at it. You're like,
right,
go warm the pine.
Right.
That thought. It's like, it doesn't do anything for me. Like it does, but I just don't let it affect me because I know exactly what I need to do to get that. So if a thought comes around, I'm like, okay, great. But like, you know what? I don't really need you. So go warm the pine. Like, I don't need you. I'm going to go focus on what I want to do. Right. And so it's almost that simple, and you can make it immensely complicated, but
it does
I like things super simple.
Yeah, it does become funny in a way. I remember reading a book years ago when I was trying to play professional golf for a little bit, and I was having those, just plagued by those like what ifs, like, oh my gosh, I left my job to go chase something that I have no evidence that I'm, can do. And like, all these crazy thoughts of negativity. And I read this really powerful book. I can't remember the name. I'll have to let you guys know what it was, but it's the same thing where, our brains are just hardwired to keep us safe, right? And to keep us comfortable and to keep us, just those ancestral brains that we have to keep us alive, essentially. And, unless there's a real threat, like a saber-toothed tiger about to rip apart your family, which isn't real anymore, right? But our brains haven't developed to the point yet where they realize that, hitting a ball in the water isn't life-threatening. No. But, we do get those same little pings of alertness, where our brain acknowledges those things. And you almost do have to laugh because you're like, dude, that's not a threat anymore, brain. Like, I don't need that, and as soon as you almost laugh at it, like you said, and kind of think about how silly it is, it's like, you just, oh yeah, let me just get right back to what I'm doing here, and it sounds like from what you're talking about, like asking your caddy, like, where's the wind off of, like, where's this hole location? We're just, mechanisms to get right back into the present, and in the moment. Do you find that having a caddy in those situations, someone to talk through the shot, is that a helpful way for you to bring yourself back in the moment? Like, have you had a caddy on the bag for like your best moments as a professional, or is it just like sometimes yes, sometimes no?
When I won the stroke play, I didn't have a caddy.
Okay.
He's caddied for me for quite a few rounds. It does help for sure, but I love what Rotella talked about, and Tom Kite talked about it when he was working with him. Tom Kite said after he started working with Rotella, he had a new best friend, and his best friend was himself. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, those influential people, your caddy support system, are huge, because that's the only person you can talk to when you're out there, get advice from. So that's huge to have someone physically on your bag. But more importantly, you have to be able to do it yourself to an extent. You kind of have to be able to make your own decisions. You kind of have to be able to almost be self-sufficient. Really, at the end of the day, you're the one hitting the golf shot. So you can't be hoping that your caddy has all the answers, or your coach has all the answers. You got to be able to, at some point, you have to be able to be like, no, I'm going to do this. This is what we're going to do, kind of thing. So, it does help for sure. But, people laugh at me because I talk to myself a lot, in my day-to-day job or my golf course or this. I literally sometimes verbally talk stuff out because I learn by hearing a lot. So I talk stuff out, and because when you talk something out, it's a reflection of what's in your mind. So if you're talking something, you first had to register in your brain and then you had to talk it out. So by actually doing that, you're helping yourself understand it a little bit more. So to answer your question, yes, it does help. Is it the end all be all? No. But it's a huge help. It's like basketball teams or anything do better when they have the coaches, the Phil Jacksons, the other coaches that are helping them along the way. But I would say one other thing that's helped this process and this thing is, you had some of those questions of, you said like, oh, I'm embarking on a journey that I don't have any experience on or whatnot. And, what are people going to think of me basically? And, if I hit a bad shot, people are going to think this of me or whatnot. And when I really started not placing my identity and my worth in my golf game, then that pressure subsided. And I believe that I have a worth and identity in Jesus, and people are made in the image of God, and that's where your true worth comes from, is you're made in the image of God. And so your golf score is just a reflection on how you played. It's not like a reflection of your identity of oh, you shot 90, you're a bad person. It's that is really absurd. And and almost everyone will say that, regardless if you're a Christian or not. It just is people still for some reason think that way. And when I started to not think that way, it helped me so much more, because I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go out here and play to the best of my ability. And if that's a 65 or 63, then that's great. And if that's a 80, that's, it is what it is. It's not, people aren't going to think less of me. People are going to remember your attitude. People are going to remember how you treated them. People are going to remember that you cared. People are going to remember that stuff. Right. They're not going to remember too much of what you shot. And to put too much emphasis on your shot is outcome goals. And you really want to be, that's just a small result orientated. You don't really want to be that. You want to be more, like you said, process orientated. But I think relieving some pressure of this score thing, it definitely helped. And when you do one shot at a time, there is no score. You literally have one shot. You try to execute the one shot. It's like one in a row. I always say that. And I got one in a row. One in a row. Another one. I just want one more in a row. So,
I think you just nailed on something that I think is so deeply rooted in our game about our self-worth and attaching it to our ability to play golf, ultimately our scores. I am an absolute victim of that. And I've learned, like you have, to detach myself from my scores. But I think that goes way back to, any level, but junior golf I can relate to, where as you're growing up and you're getting better, people are rewarding you, even if it's just pats on the backs and congratulations and positive reinforcement when you play well, when your score reflects, some kind of a performance. And then when you don't get that, when you don't score well, you don't get that praise, even if it's not negative, you're just not getting that kind of a reward. And so based on the people and the surroundings, we start to associate our self-worth as a reflection of our golf scores. And, talking with students, college students, I think that a very high percentage of them can relate to that very thing that you're talking about. And Keith and I have talked about this before. Me personally, I've transferred my self-worth from my ability to play golf to my ability to teach golf. And that's been just as detrimental. And that we need to learn to detach our self-worth from those achievements and those things that we do in golf and in any activity. And I love the way you phrase that as being a son of God and in finding some value much deeper than your performance on or around a golf course.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's huge. And, at the end of the day, you can people can believe whatever they want to believe. I found tremendous value in the way that I've done it, and it's been more freeing to me than anything, which has been the ability to kind of let my ability shine to the highest level. And so as far, I can only really speak from my own experience and whatnot. I can't really speak for other people's, but I think you and Keith are completely right on that. It is anybody that's played golf has at some point thought that way or another. And like you alluded to too, Henry, where, you're getting those congratulations and people think, oh, I play well, they're going to like me. It's like, yeah, but like it almost creates, like, when you start playing well, you start getting this, like, everyone starts liking you. So you almost think you're better than other people. And it's like, and when I have that, I almost want people to like slap me and be like, Brett, no, don't be arrogant. Like, you can be confident in your ability, but like, you should never think you're better than someone, and you should never think you're below somebody. It's just the same. Like, you should never think you're better than someone, and you should never think that you're not as good as somebody else as far as your worth level, because it's just as bad. It's just on the opposite spectrum. So you want to have a reality of yourself in the right frame of mind, not good, not too good, and not too bad, kind of this thing. And finding that happy medium is a huge key, and I think can help a lot of people. And I think you guys are on the right track to a lot of that, which is good.
I think that advice goes just as much to the coaches and the parents and the support groups around golfers as it does the golfer themselves, because we can teach our kids and our players to have a growth mindset, to focus on the process. We can congratulate them for their work ethic and their sportsmanship and their ability to stay focused in the present. We can reward them verbally for doing those things and help them detach from the end result and the score. If we only reward them on the score and what they shot, then we're only doing more harm to them at the end of the day.
I was just thinking the same thing, that you were just thinking, like, we teach them what is important, right? We teach them that score is important because we ask, what's the first thing you ask them when they come back from a tournament, right? A junior golfer, what'd you shoot, right? We need to ask better questions, and we need to help them to realize that, or help ourselves realize that, we're training them to think a certain way, training students to think that score is all that matters. And, then you end up with, junior kids and people who, feel like if they don't shoot a certain score, then they won't get, the same accolades from their parents. I mean, I can't imagine how much pressure that is, or how much pressure,
brutal way to live.
Brutal way to play golf, brutal way to live. And I mean, this can be said for anybody doing any craft. It doesn't have to be golf, right? It can be grades, it can be art, it can be whatever the heck you want it to be. It's all the same if you attach that your value to your outcome or your job, right? It's basically just your job. But I think that's super deep. And well, I mean, Brett, we've held you for a lot longer than we said we would, and I think this convo went in a place that Henry and I were super, super excited. Once we started hearing you talk about all this stuff, we were like, dude, where have you been the past year and a half, 2 years? You've been grinding, man. And that's, you've been, like you said, you've been behind the scenes, putting in the work. You don't have to put it out on Instagram to say, hey, look at me, I'm reading this amount of books. You've been doing it, and now it has manifested itself into, playing in an event. Not that it matters what event you're playing in, you're just, playing in another golf tournament, right? You're going to get a tee time. They're going to give you a tee time on Thursday. You still got to be there 5 minutes before your tee time. You still got to mark your ball. You still got to, shake your playing competitor's hands. It's just another event. And it just happens there's going to be more people watching this one, I guess, for whatever reason. They must want to come out and see a more manicured golf course. I don't, they're not they're not there for any other reason, really. I just like the architect, whoever designed it. That's what they're just big architecture fans, these guys. But dude, seriously, appreciate it. We're gonna have to have you back on if you're willing to talk, because you're living in that same mindset Henry and I are always preaching about. But it's cool to hear a different person's perspective on it. And yeah, like you said, we'll tap you in on some of our phone calls if that's cool. And I'd love to get your reading list. I want to work my way through all those books behind you. So
Sure.
yeah, best of luck, man. We'll be watching and can't wait to talk to you again. And Henry, I know you probably feel the same way.
Yeah, Brett, this has been awesome, man. Like I said earlier, Keith and I talk about these kinds of concepts on a daily basis. The mindset that you are speaking on is just oozing out of you. I can tell you've put in the work, that it's learned. You've learned this through the people that have been around you, and then through your hard work and your reading and your dedication to actually putting it into practice. And I think that everything you're getting out of it is a reflection of your hard work. And so I'm really proud and happy to see that. That last week or past few days, I've talked with Pat and Josh a little bit. Both of them said some very high regards based on their conversations that they've had with you recently. And to hear it straight from your mouth, I can totally agree with them that all of us are so excited for you, and the entire NMSU family is behind you, and we're all going to be following you and wishing you the best as you play the tournament next week. So that's so cool, man. It was so great to connect with you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was it's been a blast, and yeah, I'm happy more to talk for sure. That'd be great.
All right, buddy. Well, best of luck, and we'll talk to you soon. And play well, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
See you guys.
Buddy.
Yeah.